Good morning, everybody, and welcome to REBA Future Forum 2023, as my colleague Caroline has just said. And a huge welcome from all of the REBA team. We are delighted to have you all back, filling the room again. I imagine lots of you have got lots of things that you need to be thinking about. Future-facing, what's going to be coming down the line in 2024 and beyond. I'm going to start, as I always do, with a few of the housekeeping announcements. It also allows people to settle in, those who are coming in a bit later. Now, you will be very aware, those of you who are regular attendees of REBA events, that we like to do a lot on our phones. I'm told I'm not allowed to call it a mobile phone. That's for old people. These days, this is just a phone. And we will be using Slido again, which I'll go into for those of you who haven't done it before. But that does need to mean that you need to be on Wi-Fi. As I say every time, it takes a little while to get several hundred people onto Wi-Fi all at once. But if you wouldn't mind starting to do that, so it all starts to make sense when I get to that bit of the program. The Wi-Fi code is on the printed agendas, and it's also up on the screens around the room, so you can get on there, and it will. And while you are getting onto the Wi-Fi, I've mentioned that there are handout agendas for those of you who do like to have a print program in your hands and to see exactly which exhibitors you're going to visit and tick next to them so you make sure you see all the people you want to see. Or if you prefer to keep everything on your phone, if you go onto the REBA website, into REBA Future Forum, you can Google it, it'll bring up your program. And even if you logged in, you'll see your personalized agenda online. It's that sophisticated these days. And then on the backs of your badges, those of you who pre-booked sessions, it'll list exactly what you're attending for today. So we make it as easy as possible for you to find your way around. While I'm talking about badges, any of you who indicated when you registered for this event that you have a remit looking after rewarded benefits in any country outside of the UK, as well as perhaps a UK role, you will have a little globe printed on your badge. And we do that because we find that lots of people attending our events find it really handy to know who also looks after benefits and reward elsewhere in the world, and you can network and have a chat and see perhaps if you've got countries in common, challenges in common, and we can build that network out. We're trying to do a bit more for those of you with multinational and global roles. We've run some reports and some research. We've done a webinar, and hopefully we'll be doing even more in 2024 for outside the UK people. Right, so hopefully you're getting on well with your Wi-Fi, and I could start asking you to get onto Slido. Some of you may have the app on your phones already. If you go to other conferences, it's quite a common app, Slido, or it's even easier just to go into a browser and find slido.com. Once you're onto Slido, what you need to do is have hashtag REBAFuture. And that's this event. So then you'll be in the room with this event, and you'll have all the tools at your disposal to be able to ask questions, to vote on polls, to rate speakers, all that kind of good stuff that we seem to do digitally and virtually these days. And just on that, I mentioned speaker rating. I know we nag you for it every single time, but the speakers do value it. In fact, some of the best speakers always want to improve, but we always try and give constructive feedback to go, your session went well, you could have improved in this way. Everything's anonymized, but hugely value you just taking that few seconds at the end of every session just to rate the session you've been in, and then we can give them quite valid data. So, right, if you've managed to get yourself onto Wi-Fi and onto Slido, you will notice, if you've got onto the event, that there are 4 rooms that you can choose from. So we are currently in Broadgate 2, I believe, this particular room. I'm looking to see any thumbs up from the back of the room. Have I said it right? Yeah. No, Broadgate 1. Sorry. The light was in my eyes, I couldn't see. Broadgate 1, although after the break, I believe this switches. So if for anything we do in this session now, if you're going to ask questions, do it into Broadgate 1. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you to vote on a poll, and that will make sure you know exactly which room you're in. In fact, if you go in there now, you might see whole life already. Now, none of us could be here today without our fabulous sponsors, exhibitors, who are outside waiting to meet you. Hopefully, quite a few have actually come into the room, because I really value it when they're in the room as well, listening to the challenges that you as employers are facing. But I'd ask that you try and visit as many of them as possible today. There is so much innovation happening in our market, so much change. There might be people that you think, oh, I know them, I've seen them before. But do you know what they're doing now? Do you know what they're planning to launch in 2024? Do you know what new challenges they're now prepared to deal with? There are also lots of new names out there, people you might never have met before. And even if you're thinking at the moment, I'm not ready to buy, it's always worth having a chat, so that if in the future you go, oh, I remember meeting such and such a company, let me get back in touch. They'd be perfect for this challenge I've got now. So hugely worthwhile. And don't tell my colleagues, but I give you permission to skip the occasional conference session if you wish, in order to go around the exhibition, because it's incredibly valuable, the experience and knowledge the people out there on the floor have got to share with you as well. Now, I always encourage people to go onto social media. I love a bit of LinkedIn myself. Put your pictures up there, tell other people what you've learnt today, connect with each other, use the hashtag REBAFuture so you can connect with each other. Also, perfectly welcome to go onto other social media, TikTok, Threads, X, don't know what else is out there. Instagram, there's quite a few people I follow on Instagram, and they follow me as well, although that tends to be more personal than work on that side of things. But whatever it floats your boat, it's good to get the word out there and share what we're doing here today. So I think that's probably enough of the housekeeping for the moment. And I think it's probably time just to change the pace slightly. And those of you, again, who've been to our events before know I like to get a bit of energy in the room. And I partly do that because I think it's good to get everybody to wake up. And I also partly do it because these two lovely gentlemen over here, Swanee and Michael, always ask me to, because I like to take pictures of you doing something a bit fun. So I'm going to ask you all to stand up. And what I'm going to ask you is just stretch up to the ceiling, wave your hand, and then I'm going to ask everybody to lean to the left. I'm going to go right, so we all go the same direction. And if you're in the front, even more so that other direction. Big stretch, yawn if you need to, and I'm going to let you sit down. Great. See, everybody's laughing, everybody's smiling, we've got some energy, everybody's happy, and we're ready to get thinking. Because I'm going to get you to do a little bit of thinking now, because I want you to share some data with me. And I want to get up a polling question at this particular point. Because what I want to find out for you, and if you can go onto Slido, you'll be able to see what the question is. I want to be able to find out what you think your top reward or benefits challenge is going to be for 2024. So I'm only allowed to offer you 5 answers, so I couldn't possibly think of everybody's options, but I've kept them quite broad. So I want to know whether it's improving use of data, is that very high on your agenda for next year? Maybe even higher on your agenda is planning for an aging workforce. I know a number of you had ESG, your board or your HR director said this has really got to align much more with our ESG strategy. Maybe it's DEI, maybe that's the thing that you've been told for this year. You've got to, your KPIs make sure that you're much more diverse and equitable in your benefits. Or maybe absolutely, none of those are on your agenda at all. So, right, interesting. I knew data would come up pretty high. I don't think I was expecting it to be as high as that. Nearly, well over half of you, data very high. Quite a few on the DEI objective still. Only a small number on ESG, a much harder one. I hear that as a drumbeat year on year, and it never seems to quite get to the top. An aging workforce, interesting that it's quite low down, but I think that, again, it's going to be a slow burner and come up the agenda over time. So I think that leads in nicely into, I want to spend sort of the next 15 minutes just giving you some of my thoughts of what I'm seeing coming down the line. So if we could have my slide come up for my talk at this point. So, direction of travel for 2024. You've told me what your direction of travel is, but I want to have a look at what you've told us through our research reports this year in terms of future gazing. And at REBA, we tend to think of our REBA insights, research and reports as ideas and insight coming from REBA members for REBA members. We haven't just made this up. This comes from real employers telling us what you're planning to do. And those of you who kindly fill in our surveys on a regular basis will know that we don't just say to you, what are you doing right now, or what have you done? We usually ask, what are you planning to do in the next 12 months or the next 2 years? And that gives us a direction of travel data. It's especially if things are just emerging or about to take off. That's the stuff that we like to see, what's coming down the line. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually, what did you or the room today, when you registered for this event, tell us? And this, we asked you, if you remember, we said, what are you reviewing or plan to increase your spend on in the next 12 months? And I wanted to show you the slide first, and I'll come back to it at the end of the presentation, because it played so well to some of the trends that we've seen coming through in our research this year, as it should. Now, what we don't see on this, because it's just a snapshot in time, is what's increasing and what's decreasing. So for that, I need to delve a bit deeper into our research. And the first place I want to start at is looking at the impact of AI, automation, data, technology. We're going to be hearing a bit about that from our keynote speaker. And given what you've just said in your poll, it's top of mind for many of us. It's affecting how all of us work. And we saw that across several pieces of research, including the data that you gave us for this event, that so many of you are looking at your platforms, looking at your technologies, looking at the data that you use to do your jobs. But the really huge change will be on employees, and that's yourselves as employees as well. Human beings can find it difficult to change and learn new things and behave in a different way. But so what we're seeing is these forward-thinking employers are beginning to think more and more of how do we put in the well-being support and the mental well-being resilience alongside skills rechanging and behavioral changing. Because there's so much change happening in workplaces today. So this is from research that we just published a few weeks ago. And I mentioned this idea of changing skills, and here we see it come through so strongly in this piece of research because of the huge business change and transformation, where the companies are trying to meet net zero targets, broader ESG objectives, global growth, becoming more automated. People are having to re-skill the majority of their employees. You can't just go out and hire who you need. I don't need to tell you that. And the vast majority of your employees, you're going to be having to re-skill. And really forward-thinking employers are doing that future skills mapping and working out what they'll need in time to come. But we're also seeing some trends that are not just UK-focused. We're seeing what's happening globally, this emphasis on fairness, and I hear it a lot from the members I speak to. ESG, as I say, is this drumbeat that's ongoing for businesses across the globe, digitization across the globe, changing employee expectations. I think just about everybody I speak to talks about this. DEI is still there. And then, of course, that challenge to recruit those in-demand skills. So we're not just seeing it in the UK, we're not just seeing it in Europe. The survey was done across the globe, and we're seeing it in all regions of the world. So what does this mean for benefit programs? Well, there's lots of things we could look at. But in this particular survey, the middle bar, the lighter blue bar, shows where employers are offering that particular, or dealing with that particular issue. So looking at benefits design or communication, recognition, digital platforms, and environmental benefits. And they're saying, we've got this, but it's not aligning to the way that our business is transforming. And we're going to be looking at this in the next 2 years. Now, you expect benefits design to be tweaked on an ongoing basis, communication to be tweaked on an ongoing basis. I think there's more fundamental changes happening to benefits design as well. But look at something like recognition platforms. We've seen a fundamental shift in the way that they're used. When I started writing in this area as a journalist quite a long time ago, 25 years ago, it was very much about motivation, recognition, incentives, getting gift cards. Now it's so much more about changing behaviors, encouraging people to learn new skills, behave in a more environmentally friendly way, for example. Incentivizing people in real time when you're stuck with annual pay reviews or quarterly pay reviews, if you're lucky. Recognition programs are being used very differently, and they're holding so much data to allow you to gap spot for DER of who's not engaging, who's being left out. That is a world that's changed quite a lot. So I thought that was a very interesting stat to see how that's playing through. Now, I mentioned data. And as a reward director I was speaking to last week, who I've seen here, Sally, there you are, you talked about we all need to get our data heads on. And what our research is showing is there's still a gap in terms of you might want to do that, but have you got the skills in your teams to really do the analysis that you need? Some teams do, some don't. Some people say to me, they get great data from their providers. Others say, it just isn't at the level I need. Quite commonly, you find that the people who've got platforms or tools that you're using to manage your benefits that feel more smoke and mirrors with some very high-level data, but nothing delivering that deep dive analysis. I think there's going to be a lot of change around this coming up because you want more data. Now, it's easy to blame the provider and the platform providers and so on, but actually we've got research coming out, I think it'll be in February, where we've looked at this, and you're finding that where there is data coming from providers, there's quite robust forward planning happening among not the majority, but some people. But actually what's a lot harder is how do you capture the data within your own companies and pull that together across the piece. So I don't know what the solution to that is because it's a lot tougher. And maybe that's where AI, it will come in the future, because we're sitting with this data, but how do we make sense of it going forward? The other big shift coming down the line is older workers. Now, obviously, we saw only 2% of you saying it's top of your agenda for next year. I'm not surprised, because this is going to take a long time to play through. But it is coming. We have got skills shortages. We are going to have to hold on to those more experienced older workers. But we're going to have to think differently about how they work, when they work, where they work, to capture their knowledge and their skills. But also be very aware that as you get a bit older, perhaps you haven't got the same energy levels, or we've got more health conditions coming through. So you see people, employers, looking at those future risks of musculoskeletal and other long-term conditions. So people are perfectly able to work, but maybe not the way they always have in their lives. And we're going to be looking at this kind of issue and the impact on insurances at a new summit that we're hoping to launch in the spring, really looking at employer-funded health and how that's going to shift dramatically because of so much of the inflation and other issues we're seeing today. The other area we're seeing a lot of shifts on is the retirement, the aging workforce and retirement, and that pre-retirement planning and financial well-being. This research that we came out in September was our financial well-being research. You see a massive shift. I think it's going to go even further, because the days of people retiring on a DB scheme and the employer not having to think about what happens in the future is going to change if we have people in the workplace for longer, having part retirement, coming back to work, and also retiring on DC schemes. And this is part of why REBA launched the REBA Future of Pensions Summit, which we ran in September for the first time this year, talking about pensions through a reward and benefits lens, which is a very different conversation to a pure pensions lens, because you guys have so much opportunity to do things differently for a new generation. I know they're a bit older, but a different generation coming up to retirement. And we saw lots of announcements, consultations announced earlier this year and again yesterday in the autumn budget of the government very aware that they're going to have to think about how people are going to decumulate their pensions as they come up to retirement, and that's going to affect the HR teams. I think it's going to affect payroll, it's going to affect benefits and reward. So we're going to be running the Pension Summit again in September and putting out a lot more information on the REBA website as these changes come through, so you're aware of when they're hitting. Now, we don't have to worry, pensions is not going to be tomorrow. It takes a long time to change in pensions. We haven't even got the dashboard yet. But it's going to change, and it's going to affect everybody's job in this room. I touched on pensions. I just thought I'd show you a snapshot. These are the delegates that came to our summit this year, the kind of pensions that are now on offer in workplaces. And I think if you'd looked at the slide pre-auto enrollment, it would have looked very different. And 20 years before that, DB pensions would have been at the top. Yeah, it's very clear the direction of travel. We've got the Royal Assent for the extension of auto-enrollment came through this year. I'm sure that's affecting many of you, especially those with younger workforces, with low-paid workers coming through. Again, the autumn statement yesterday talking about the pension pot for life, particularly aimed at those people who move jobs frequently or low earners who might be doing 3 jobs. There's just no point for them having lots of teeny tiny pots with lots of different employers. So that's just going into consultation coming down the line, but it could become a bit of a game changer for workplace pensions in due course. So interesting, after pensions have been quiet for so long, how they're coming up to the agenda. Other areas to watch, DEI and reward, those gaps are still a focus. We saw that emphasis on fairness. It's a global thing. People really are concerned about that. Yeah, the rich have and the lower earners have not. And I still think there's not enough attention paid to how we manage working parents and try and stop those gaps being created when people go off on parental leave of whatever gender, but often it affects women most, and that's where we see big pay and pensions gaps that we cannot afford to have in this day and age and in the near future. And we've barely begun to even really think about working with employees who have visible or invisible disabilities, or people working with long-term health conditions. We put this research out again, we had a very busy autumn, as you can probably tell. But we have this rich source of incredible employees who want to do more in their careers. And we need skills. And if we think differently about how they work and when and how we support them, we could be tapping into so many more people when we're grappling for skills. And they're keen, and there's some benefits that we list that they say we'd really value these benefits. So one worth thinking about in organisations. And again, with an ageing workforce, you know that you're going to have more people in your workforce who are going to be dealing with long-term health conditions as well. So we need to be thinking about those. So I think to sort of sum up the overarching themes of what I've been trying to say in the last few minutes is, if I take these stats from our benefits design research that we publish every April, the themes are data, going to become even more important to make those decisions we need to make. Adaptability, I keep saying about adaptability in job design through to benefits, and personalisation. We all have different needs and backgrounds. And pressures on us. And I think it might not have rated high on your immediate agenda, but that ESG, DEI, fairness is still going to underpin so many decisions going forward. I think we can't go back on that. So just putting up that slide I put up right at the beginning, I wanted to do it again now that I've had it spoken, because you can see why perhaps those buying decisions and those reviews are happening at the moment and how they correlate to some of the themes that we've picked up. And then just a little bit of a plug for REBA. I'm sure many of you engage with us in different ways, but not everybody likes to take information in the same way. So we try in many different ways, live events, online with our webinars, our research, our reports. We have REBA Link for employers to talk to each other and ask different questions. We've got our big events. We're trying to get this information through to you in so many different ways. So do let us know what works, what doesn't work, what you'd like differently, what we're missing. I'd really appreciate that. But I have to say, it's been interesting to look at all of our research that we've done over the last year and pull these themes together. And I couldn't help wondering when I was doing that, I wonder if I just let ChatGPT loose on this. Would they have written that? It took me quite a few days to work all that out. Would it have just done it for me in 2 minutes? Did I need to be standing up here at all? And I think my job is going to look quite different. Hopefully I'll be standing up for quite some time to come, but perhaps not doing the journalistic stuff in the same way as I have in the past. And I think when I talked about data and it affecting benefits, thinking differently about the potential of what that could bring to our worlds and how we work.